Hey guys, welcome to another Complete Developer Raw, a live show with Will and BJ. How you guys doing this evening? So it's been a little while since we have been on. We had a bit of a delay last week. We didn't record because of family stuff going on. So we're back. We're live. I don't know, we should have some other word that we are, but whatever. So we have finished up the Four Roses. There's a little bit left. I will be finishing that tonight. I think Will got the single barrel. Single barrel does tend to be a little bit harsher. I think you would like more of a blended, or like the regular stuff from Four Roses.
That stuff was basically Irish mouthwash.
It's Kentucky.
That is right. That's Kentucky. Yeah. I was thinking the. But.
Yeah. So, and tonight we have opened up a bottle of Monkey Shoulder. It is a triple malt scotch. So it is a blend, but it is a blend of specific malts. And I'm looking on here to see if it says. The guy at the liquor store that was telling me about it told me the three that are in here. And I'll get that to you guys next week. I'll have to look that up. I don't think it's on the bottle. But if you haven't had this stuff, it's really good. Tends to be a little bit cheaper than a single malt at the bars and stuff, but tastes just as good as your average single malt, like a 12-year-old or something. So it's really great. Give it a try. It's made from 3 really good single malts. So I think one of the Glenlivet or Glenfiddich is one of them. So all right, so what's my stuff going on? I am so excited. I am speaking at CodeMash. It's a big, huge conference up in Sandusky, Ohio, which is about an hour and a half from where my sister lives. So it's neat because it's the second week of January.
Yeah.
So I'm going to be, if I can get it worked out with my job, I will be driving my sister up. I've already taken time off to help her drive home after Christmas. I'll be driving her home after Christmas, staying up there with her for a week, and then going to the conference.
Nice. Okay.
So that I only have to buy one plane ticket home. So that's really cool. And it's a brand new talk. We did an episode on it. It's the episode we did on dealing with failure in development. So I'm turning that into a talk. So it's going to be really cool. I've got some really awesome ideas for slides. I'm looking forward to just jumping in there. It's a backup talk at DevSpace in a couple of weeks. So I've got kind of a little bit built on it. I'm going to finish that up this weekend probably, or early next week, and get that finalized for DevSpace. If I get to practice it there, because it's one of the backup talks, that'll be awesome. If not, then I'll be giving it for the very first time. What's really cool is CodeMash has, when I was filling out the form, the speaker form, they have an option that says, are you an experienced speaker? Would you like to mentor other speakers? And I've only spoken twice at conferences. Actually, once. I'll have my second talk will be, if you don't count the stuff that we did, the panels we posted.
Yeah.
So I don't consider myself an experienced speaker, but the second question after that was, are you a new speaker? Would you like to be mentored? And I was like, yes, I would. I will take any advice I can get.
That's really good that they're doing that.
Yeah, and I know they've got a thing where they try to get new speakers in, especially new to speaking and new to CodeMash. So I really like this. I'm super excited about this. I was like ecstatic when I got that email this afternoon.
Yeah.
Will knows he was the first one I told before telling my family.
Yeah.
we were on Hangouts. I sent him a message, and then I picked up my phone and texted my family.
Yeah.
So a couple weeks ago, I was got to help out Junior Developer Toolbox. They were recording their anniversary episode. Did a live recording at Nashville Software School to their alumni group. That episode, I was looking forward to. Yeah, that episode came out this past week, so you guys can go check that out. I actually do have a couple of speaking parts in it. They asked me a couple of questions. I was
trying. You have to wear a costume. If you had a speaking part, you got to wear a costume, right?
No different than my normal costume.
Oh, Lord. So you were a bad guy.
Actually, I was dressed like a audio techie, like all black, and just sitting there doing stuff. But they had the questions were about you, actually.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, they were talking about, it was the topic was imposter syndrome, and they're talking about giving talks and things like that to groups. And it got brought up that you had mentioned a couple of times that when we first started out, you would seize up.
Yeah.
Right in the middle of it, realizing, oh my goodness, there's hundreds of people listening, and now we've got thousands of people listening. And
then I discovered that alcoholic beverages make it where I don't get nervous. Actually, that was early on, and then that went away.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't remember exactly when it went away, but I remember sitting over there one day and going, I didn't freeze up during this episode.
Yeah, I remember you saying that.
I was like, what?
And my response was, shut up and write the tricks of the trade so I don't have to do it myself.
Oh, somebody's sore. See.
I'm picking on him because he forgot to write it for this week's episode. So if it's not as good as the normal write-up, that's because I tried to do it last minute. So
yeah, I wouldn't call mine good, but that's awesome that you think that.
Let's see. I have been house hunting, apartment shopping lately. My lease is up at the end of the year, December, and so I'm probably going to move. I may be taking Will's advice. He suggested, because I was complaining about the prices, he suggested moving into a bigger place that increases the price, but not a lot, and I get more out of it. So I've been actually looking at that. And I've been talking to a couple of real estate agents about maybe buying a small home. So, but I really think I'm a year or two away from that. I'd like to save up a bit more for more of a down payment.
Yeah.
And then
lower the rate.
Yeah. And finally, for my stuff, my second assignment was due this week. I uploaded it. It was due Tuesday by midnight. I uploaded it Monday night after I went back and reviewed everything. And yeah, I uploaded it and hit submit, but it didn't go in. There was apparently a confirmation that I had to do or something. It was really annoying because at Tuesday at midnight, I got a notice that I was late on my assignment.
Oh.
And I'm like, what?
Yeah.
Like, I was in bed. I got up out of bed and went and got on my computer and was like, what is going on? And so I sent the professor a note and said, hey, I thought this submitted Monday night. I'm sorry. Haven't heard back from him, but he's pretty cool, so I don't think it's going to be a big deal. Like, yeah, if you turn it in 15 minutes late and go, hey, I thought this was already submitted, I just found out that it wasn't.
Yeah.
They're usually pretty cool about stuff like that. So
yeah, if you wait 2 days and then say that, not so much.
Yeah, exactly. So what's going on with you?
Stuff kind of hit the fan last week. My grandmother fell not this past Sunday night, but the Sunday night before, and we found out, Sunday night, she fell. They gave her an X-ray Monday. She seemed like she was okay. I called her, checked in on her, and she just said she had fallen, and they had given her a little bit of pain meds, and everything was okay. By Wednesday night, they had moved her to the ICU, and they discovered that she'd had a heart attack, and pneumonia, and another infection, and a cracked vertebra from the fall. The heart attack caused the fall, which caused the cracked vertebra. So anyway, I went down there this past Friday to see her, and I'm going down there again tomorrow. It's not looking too good, to be straight up honest. So I've been dealing with that, and at work we have a major conference coming up that's like the biggest conference in the industry, and that starts next weekend. And so we are all of us are really hitting it hard right now, trying to get stuff fixed, trying to get stuff done, get things out. And so that was against the backdrop of all this other stuff. Mm-hmm. So I was on the way down and on the way back both, from seeing my grandmother last Friday. I was on the phone, mm-hmm. trying to figure stuff out. So yeah, it's been a little bit rough for the last little while. So that's basically all I've been doing is work and checking in on her.
So we're gonna keep the episodes coming out every week. We plan for things like this, but the live shows may, they're live.
Yeah.
So if we missed last week, so that Will could get ready to go down to see his grandmother. We didn't know what was going on then, so if we miss another one, just we'll post on social media. Hey, we're gonna miss this week. I know a couple weeks coming up I won't be here because I'll be at Dev Space, but we'll try to keep you guys informed of when we're going to be on and when we're not. So as far as the podcast is concerned, I will be sending out water bottles probably tomorrow, maybe Saturday, sort of depending on when I get a chance to get over to the post office. I try to do that in batches. Just it makes it easier rather than trying to go every time a new one comes in, because we don't always hear back from you guys right after we air the episode. So I may get 2 or 3 in 1 week and none for 2 or 3 weeks. So I try to do them in batches. When I get about 3 or 4, I'll take it over there. So if you guys have sent me your information, and I haven't sent you a water bottle yet, it's on its way. It will be on its way either tomorrow or Saturday. So there's that. Now, also wanted to say hey to Joseph over on Facebook. How's it going, man? I had a training course with one of your coworkers. She came up to me in one of the breaks and was like, "Do you know Joseph?" And I was like, "Yes,
everybody knows Joseph.
Everybody knows Joseph."
Come on.
Well, we had met previously through him. So,
oh, okay.
Yeah. So like there was that. But all right, let's go ahead and get on into some of these questions.
Okay. The first one is, why are so many young programmers obsessed with getting jobs at Google or Facebook? And I think this is a pretty good question. Here's the deal. People assume that getting a job there means that you're good, right? So that's the target that you go for. That's effectively what's going on. They know that those companies exist. They know that they're stable. They have a lot of money. They have a lot of pull in the industry. They're considered some of the best places to work.
They're considered that. I don't know if they actually are.
I've heard some stuff about Google. I've definitely heard some stuff about Facebook. I think those companies at this point are big enough that it's probably it really depends on your team. It's not just so. They're not scrappy startups anymore. These are billion-dollar companies with everything attending that. So that's why they're obsessed. It's not it's not the thing of people that are young or stupid. It's like, no, they don't have all the information. They've got enough to go, okay, this is what I should be going for if I want to prove myself, and that's what they're eager to do because so this is your motivated junior devs that are doing this.
See,
right? So,
coming from like a lot of knowledge about academia, and I think of these Google, Facebook, even Microsoft still as like the Ivy League.
Yeah,
they're like kind of the top level. You're going to be doing some pretty crazy stuff. I would say a couple of others. I mean, these are the most well known.
Yeah,
but
Amazon would be another example.
Amazon, they release it's seconds.
Yeah,
because they're doing continuous release. It's like insane. And Tesla.
Yeah, and even some of the the second tier are still sought after. Like if you're going for Yahoo.
Yeah.
And that's not even second tier probably at this point, but there's a lot of companies like that out there. So there's a reason. It's because they've heard of them.
They've heard of them. They're well known. They pay well.
Yeah.
And you're going to be doing. The perception is you're going to be doing very interesting things. I don't know if you actually are or not. I've not worked for them, and I don't know anyone personally that has going in, like started off at a job with one of them. Do you? That'd be really cool.
I probably do, but
I've known people who have worked there, but not their first job, like out of school.
And I wouldn't know them closely.
Yeah.
Anyway, so.
All right, moving on to the next question. What are some dead giveaways that someone is a junior developer just by looking at their code? This is kind of tough
Yeah.
because it's interesting. Like this question, I kind of picked it because I wanted to talk about something, and that is a lot of the signs of a junior developer are also going to be signs of a very advanced developer.
Yeah, because
It's going to be more simplistic and written out. I guess your mid to early senior developer. That's when you get into the complexity.
When it gets over complicated. The metaphor I've seen. I don't know if you've ever seen somebody that's, like gotten in karate. You get a white belt when you start, right? Mm-hmm. And then at some point you get a black belt. Well, like if you ever have met a really old black belt that's like an 8th degree, their belt is like ratty and it's starting to turn white again. Right?
Yeah, I remember hearing that story.
It's kind of like that.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And they do real, and they do the same moves over and over again because those work.
They're using the things that work, and they know that their code is going to be maintainable and reusable,
right?
And their complexity is in the simplicity.
Yeah,
it's like they're using simple ways of solving problems. The complexity is in how the problem is solved, not in the code itself.
Yeah. Now you can pick out a mid-level dev like that because they will be overcomplicating stuff. Because everybody goes through this.
I'm going through this right now. I struggle with it, so I understand.
Yeah, and that's easy to pick out.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a little trickier with a junior.
The thing with the junior dev, you'll notice things like, some things I've seen where you have a dependency injection pattern and they don't use it.
Yeah.
It's like it's set up. Someone previously had set it up for that.
And it's clearly there.
Yeah, and they go into like a controller method and they're instantiating a repository.
Yeah.
Because, they're still using the repository pattern, but they're not putting it in, they're not injecting it, or they're not using the one that's already injected.
Yeah. The other thing too is they'll a lot of the shortcuts are not going to be there as much. Now another thing too you'll see with like senior devs a lot of times is like the naming conventions and stuff. You'll look at it and you go, wow, that's an old naming convention.
Yeah.
So you can kind of pick that stuff out. I mean, I was showing them at Nashville Software School, like the Hungarian notation that we used to use.
Oh, yeah.
Where it's like you have a variable and it's like M _ LPSTZ and then the name of the string because it's a module level long pointer to a 0 terminated string. Because you had a crappy IDE that didn't tell you all that stuff, so you had to it had to travel with a name.
The funny thing is now that is an anti-pattern.
Yeah.
Which is really interesting. So, yeah, it's... I'm trying to think. Dead giveaways?
And using really, really new cutting-edge constructs. Like, for instance, JavaScript. I can look at a senior JavaScript developer or somebody that's been doing it a long time. Let me kind of tilt that a little bit. And they're using var everywhere, right? And a junior dev could be writing the same code and they'll be using let. But let hasn't exactly gotten into the JavaScript circles of senior devs that I'm exposed to as much.
The thing is, it doesn't mean
they're wrong. They're actually right. But just knowing some of the newer things exist, because once you've been doing stuff a while and you've got a way to solve a problem, you don't go find another one.
Yeah, exactly. So there's that, and I'm trying to think of some of the things that I've seen. The DI stuff was huge. Like I was like, why? I stopped what I was doing and refactored the whole thing because it annoyed me that much.
Well, and it was a problem. It broke testability.
Yeah. And there's other things.
Like they might not be real consistent on naming, like because you got to get burned by that enough where you start to kind of you make your rut.
Yeah, and I'll tell you guys, when you've been in this long enough, and by long enough I mean like a year of professional development, because that's when it happened to me. You will have those stories. I was just in training, like I mentioned, talking to Joseph this week, and our trainer was talking about this. And like, yeah, everybody's got those stories where they had to go back and add a feature or do some maintenance on code they had written very early in their career. And for him, it was like 2 or 3 years later. For me, it was about 6 months. after I had started, and I had to go back and maintain and work within some stuff that I had written when I first started. And I was like, man, who wrote this crap?
I was talking to a friend of mine who is a boss of mine, and he worked for a client of ours, and we're in a Slack channel together now, and he was talking about some code that I wrote. This was in like 2005. He was like, "This was really slick. You really took the design patterns to heart and all this stuff." And I'm just like horrified because I'm like, "There's no way that code was any good." I'm like looking at it in the screen when he's saying this, and I'm like, oh man, you're remembering something, that I don't know. Maybe you cut me some slack because I was junior. So I'm thinking, because that crap.
Maybe you copy and pasted it.
No, I wrote it. I did I did nice clean polymorphism, and there's a little bit of reflection in there for the automatic wire up on some stuff. But that was total resume-driven development. I think what happened is I was doing resume-driven development, and I had a really short timeline, so I didn't actively screw up like you normally do, and so I just didn't get caught.
You got it working, and then you stopped messing with it.
Yeah.
That's like I was working on something, bug, this afternoon, and I was showing Dave, who works with me from Junior Developer Toolbox. I was like, all right, so I was showing him some C#, and it involved doing a nested loop because we have to loop through an object or an array of objects and make a change there, but then each one of those objects has a child array that we have to loop through and make a change there too. So it was a nested loop, and so I was explaining big O notation to him. I was like, all right, do you know what this is? And
it's O(n) squared.
Yeah. And he's like, I'm not real familiar with it, so that became sort of a little bit of a training opportunity, and showing him about that kind of stuff. And I was like, this is not a very efficient pattern, but for what we have to do, there's not a lot of better ways to do it.
Yeah, and especially the size of the data set. I guess you could probably, depending on how those updates happen, you could probably make the database server do it and then pull it back. But, there's... Yeah, most of the time when you optimize stuff before it actually hurts you, like that's something you will see upper juniors to mids do a lot of too. Is because mid-level developers, like they're in a real rough spot there for a while, because I totally remember that, and over optimizing is something that happens.
Yeah. So you know how we optimized it? We changed it so it didn't do that. I have to make those changes at all. We changed the process.
Code that does not run does not have bugs.
Right. What was it? I read something that David Neal wrote about the most efficient line of code is the one you don't have to write, or something like that.
It's a comment. It's a no-op.
All right. Last question.
What was your lowest point as a software developer? Ooh, okay. Let's see. There was a time I got fired for insubordination. And went home and seriously considered getting out of software development and going and being a plumber or something else, carpentry, just about anything else, because I was tired of being in a cubicle, tired of being in an office. I would say that was pretty low. There's been some others, like the burnout cycle is very, very real in this industry. I'd say another really low point was actually before I got out of school was my senior project. Because if we were roommates then, right? And there were four of us on the team, right, for this thing, and I wrote 250 to 260 pages of code that semester, right? And when you're not used to doing that, and oh, by the way, you've got other stuff, like you got a job, you're taking classes, and you're doing that, like it was pretty rough. The other guy on the team, I think, wrote 10 to 15 pages of code and a little bit of documentation. One of the girls wrote about 35 pages of docs, and the other girl didn't do anything. And that really made me consider whether I wanted to do this or not, because I'm like, look, I don't want the rest of my life to be a high school group project, because that's kind of what that was like.
And the problem is you get some professors, and like I had this in biology, where when I was pre-med, they were telling me, oh, this is what med schools want or they're looking for, and totally wrong because none of them had ever been to med school. I talked to people that were med school professors and got a clearer picture. But some of those professors are telling you things then they've only ever been in academia.
Yeah, and this professor was like that, and I think he's got a full-time dev job now. But he said, you know, when you get out in the real world, you may have to carry your teammates, which is true, because I can tell you I've done that a few times. But the other thing is when you're in a senior project, like you can't walk away.
Yeah.
And go, oh, I'm going to go, well, if I can't do it here, I'll just go to the college across the street and do it over there.
Yeah.
You know, like that's not a thing, right? Whereas in a job, when you're getting abused like that, you know, you can go somewhere else probably. It may take you a minute, but you can get out. There's an escape hatch.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, I think I remember telling him, I was like, you know, look, see, in the real world, what would actually happen is I would tell you to go urinate in a transformer, and I would go work for your competitor.
That's good.
he didn't really care for that. So that was a pretty low spot. I mean, there's been several others.
See, I think the lowest for me was the situation in New York.
Yeah.
So I know I've told this a couple of times. I don't know if everybody's heard this. I guess it was about like 8 months into me learning to code. So I was like, Will had been pushing me for a couple of months. He's like, "Oh, you're ready to get a job. You're ready to get a job." And I didn't think I was. And then years later, or a year or two later, I got a job and met other junior developers in their first time job and realized, oh, I really was ready back then. But
yeah, it's funny how listening to your mentor would have helped.
But so I took this position that they did consulting, and it was a huge firm. They flew me up to New York. They were putting me up there and going to do like a couple of months of training and then send me back. And then I get up there. I'm in a room not much bigger than our recording room, a little bit longer because you had beds, but like it was basically a dorm room. We had a group bathroom, so it was a dorm in New York City, which was cool. We're in the city. There's like a Starbucks across the street. It was, you know, a couple of subway stops from the Met, which I don't know if you guys have ever been, is really awesome. I like museums.
Yeah, none of that's persuasive to me, but okay.
It was to me. It was really cool. And then I got in there, and they had told me, "Oh yeah, we guarantee you'll get a job in Nashville and stuff like that." And they're like, "Oh well, you know, you have to interview in Chicago and like all these places." I'm like, I don't want to do that. I'm willing to come up to New York for a few months. And so after a few weeks, I was just like, no, this isn't what I want to do. So I ended up leaving that program before it was like they had a cutoff time, and I left before that. But then they basically kicked me out of the place I was staying at 5 o'clock at night on a Friday. Or was it Friday or was it middle of the week?
Seems like I thought it was like middle of the week because
it was. My sister took a day off work, so it was maybe Wednesday or Thursday. But basically, I had nowhere to go. Thankfully, my roommate, I'm not going to say his name, but he was a really nice guy from Georgia. You know, looking out for another Southern boy. He let me stay the night in the room, and the manager people, they were kind of like, it's kind of cruddy what they're doing, so we're not really going to call you out, but you have to leave today.
Yeah.
And so my sister took a day off work, drove from Cleveland to New York City, picked me up that afternoon, and I went back and I stayed with her till Christmas.
Yeah.
So
it seems like that was between Thanksgiving and Christmas or something.
Yeah.
It was.
Yeah, I stayed there for it was before Thanksgiving because we had Thanksgiving up at her house.
Yeah.
And so I was there for several months. We were still recording because I remember recording the podcast from the guest room at my sister's house.
Yeah.
And that was an interesting trying to like
getting the audio moved and like
because that was back when you were recording locally on your box and I was recording locally, and then I had to line it up, and oh man, that was
and Audacity. Oh man, those were the days.
But I was also I did some interviewing up in Cleveland because I was like, well, hey, we can get this. You and I can work it out to do it online, and I was like, all right, I can get a job up here, and I got a place to stay until I get on my feet. it would have been really awesome, but I didn't, and then ended up moving back here, getting a job, and then a few months later, I got the job at the state and haven't looked back.
Yeah.
But that was my lowest point. That was a long story. Sorry, guys.
Yeah.
I
I think we've all had 3 or 4 really low points.
What? What?
That's not good. So
oh, well, it's still
recording or whatever.
right. So Facebook is saying reload site.
Just hit cancel.
I don't know what's going on, guys. It keeps popping up. Is it Facebook or is it no? I don't know. Sorry, guys. I'm gonna pop over here to this since we're done with the questions. A couple of shout outs. We got John Wells on.
How's it going, John?
Jason Mall. Hey, man. Guys, if I've told you I was in sales when I was doing insurance sales. Jason was he was my manager way back in the day. That's awesome. How you doing, man? Let's see. Well, BJ, I still have no idea what you're talking about, really, but I still love how passionate you are with it. Yeah,
that's okay. We don't either.
So, you know what? It's really awesome because I left insurance to pursue my passion in development. Jason left insurance to pursue a dream of his. He is a pastor at a church. And I remember when he left, it was like a dream he'd always had. And
cool.
So, Jason, I hope everything's going great. I check out your live feeds whenever I'm on and you're doing one. It's really awesome. Oh, I get this, dude. I have started volunteering at my church doing the media production stuff. So I'll be doing that Sunday, helping out with that. So that's really cool. And then was there anyone else on there? Oh, Dave. Hey, Dave.
What up, Dave?
Had lunch with Dave. Well, we worked together, but we went out to lunch and had a good lunch today.
You see him regularly.
Mm-hmm. All right, guys. So if you haven't already checked it out, the episode that came out today was going back to school. This was based on my experiences, but if you guys have been in software for a few years now, you're ready to move up. You might be wanting to switch into development and prefer more of a formal education. We have friends that do that. Or you may have a degree in something else, but want to get something more specific like machine learning or artificial intelligence or move up into management. There are a lot of different reasons you may be looking at going back to school to get a formal education in computer science. And the episode, we talk about going back for a formal education, not a code school or a boot camp. We may have other episodes in the future talking about that. Having not attended schools outside the U.S., a lot of our examples are very U.S.-centric. And like I said, a lot of this, probably 75 to 80% of the episode, came from my experience in making the decision to go back to school. The rest is a combination of a few blog posts and a lot of Will's experience with getting his degree in computer science. First, we discuss some of the common ways of going back to school. Then we delve into the process of making that decision and the different things that you need to consider when thinking about going back.
And the episode next week will be about selecting a tech stack for your side hustle. So you've probably got a number of different ideas for things to do as a side project, to make money. Whether you've seen a gap in the market that you believe you can address, don't like the tools that are already in that market, or you see a market that you really like, ideas are everywhere. You're swimming in them. However, no matter how good the idea is, if you can't execute on it, you'll never be able to release anything. So we're going to talk about selecting a development stack for a side project. And there's several things here that are really important. But the big deal is that you have to maximize the amount of time that you have available for actually getting things done, not for fighting with tech. So you don't want to be spending a bunch of time troubleshooting weird errors. You don't want to spend every waking moment of your life in front of a computer screen either. Like when you have a side hustle and a full-time job, like that's a lot of time. So you want to cut back on anything that's going to make you spend time in front of the computer when it's not necessary. In this episode, we discuss some of the things you should consider when you pick out a tech stack for a side hustle. We start by talking about the cost of the tools and the hosting, and then we get into the platform itself, discussing things like stability, access to help, deployment, and interactions with other platforms. And finally, we finish on mixed environments and languages.
So guys, we're going to hop off here.
And record 2 episodes.
Yeah, because we don't know anyone at all who works full-time, has a side hustle, and is going to graduate school.
Yeah.
No one in this room does that at all. All right, well, we're going to hop off here. Catch y'all guys next week.